Welcome back to Overthink This with me. I am really excited about today's episode. So, the way this came about is I had a couple friends of mine, two different people, send me Instagram clips from these really big thinkers and basically about the concept of worry. And I told one of my friends, I was like, you know what? I need to do a podcast episode about these concepts because they're so helpful, they're so relevant, and they were so helpful for me to even think about. So today, we're going to talk about worry. We're going to talk about how trying to be certain of something actually causes more anxiety. So we're going to get into that. So first off, I have a little story. A few years ago, when my husband and I were first dating, we might have even been maybe engaged, but either way, it was early on in our relationship. And I remember we were sitting next to each other and he was messaging on Facebook, like Facebook Messenger. And I saw he was messaging one of his friends and they were talking about camping. Like I saw the word camping. And I just sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, is he going camping with this guy? Like, are they planning a camping trip? Like, what's going on? So I'm like sitting there, like waiting for him to bring it up. He doesn't. Then I start to like, you know, I don't know, create opportunities for him to tell me. So I was like, oh, you have any like fun trips? Hey, coming up? Do you have anything going on with this friend, seeing him anytime soon? He's like, no, no. And I just kept thinking, why is he lying to me? Like, obviously, he's planning a camping trip. Why is he hiding this camping trip? And I started to spiral. So, for days, it might have even been like a week. I can't remember, but it was multiple days of me stressing about him going on this secret camping trip that he wasn't telling me about. So, obviously, there was something super sketchy about it. And again, I seriously convinced myself of this. I was stressed about it, couldn't eat, like very, very anxious about this idea. So days later, we're hanging out talking, and randomly he brings up, he's like, oh yeah, my buddy's trying to sell me his camping gear. He wanted to know if I wanted to buy his camping gear. And I immediately felt like such an idiot. And I'm not trying to be mean to myself. I'm just saying, I was like, oh my God, like, Lindsay, we were sitting here stressing about, we were creating the situation that wasn't true, assuming the worst, and then saying, oh my God, he's hiding from me. And I was just, after he said that, I immediately thought, our brains are so powerful. They have so much power to be able to create convincing scenarios where our entire body is involved with this story. It's like our brain gets this idea and we're like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Run with it. And then it becomes your reality and you're living in this what feels like this real situation that's going on, and then you find out none of it was real. I mean, it's wild. The brain is very powerful, can be very influential. And I just thought, I don't want to do that again. Like the amount of stress, the amount of hours and days and nights of sleep that I lost over this fake thing, I don't want to do that. Like, it was so unnecessary. So that is something very personal that happened to me. And I'm sure you can sit there and maybe think of some situations that have happened to you where something similar happened where maybe it was like bits and pieces of information. And instead of being curious and asking directly, like, hey, what about this? Or hey, I saw this. Are you going on a trip? Or instead of me doing that, you just fill in the gaps of some wild story that somehow fits the narrative that you either kind of want to see or you're fearful to see, and then it just fills out the rest. So we don't want to do that. It's not helpful, as especially with people who have more of an anxious attachment style in relationships. We tend to think that if we can make the quote unquote right decision, if we can be certain about the decision that we're going to make, then we'll be safe. Then the situation or the outcome will be better, it will be good, we'll be okay. And that's really our motive, and the motive really can come out of fear at the end of the day, but we do it as a coping mechanism. So I do want to stop and just say, I am not addressing this topic for you to take it and beat yourself up and say, wow, I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. Because we also tend to be really harsh and critical of ourselves. So I just want to do a friendly reminder here that we're all messed up people. We all got our own ways of coping. It's all about how we survived and how we got through things. And so I just want you to practice some self compassion while we talk about things like this. Because again, I don't bring up this topic to make you feel bad. I bring it up to bring awareness so that we can look at it almost like a third party and look at the situation and look at our own selves and say, hmm, Number one, do I do that? Number two, is it really helping me out? And are there ways that we can be healthier about our approach around uncertainty so that we have more general peace and that our relationships are also based on facts and not on fake scenarios? So just extend some grace with yourself as we're going through this episode. So, the first clip that was sent to me from an like Instagram thing, and I have a little outline here because I want to make sure I quote everything correctly. But the first one is from like a clip from Dr. Julia DiGangi, I believe is how she pronounces it. She is a neuropsychologist, and she's talking about she studies basically like the effects of emotions on the body and how uncertainty works and anxiety and all that stuff. So you can find her on Instagram and I'm sure in many other places. But she starts it and she says how our need for certainty does make us anxious. And she coins this definition of anxiety and she says she defines anxiety as a disturbed relationship with certainty. So almost like there's something wrong with how it views certainty is kind of how I translate that when I'm thinking about it. So she brings up examples of like, if you're trying to figure out, is this the right job? Should I go to this college? Is this the right person for me to date? Is this the right person for me to marry? Like all these overthinking situations, I'm over stressing about it. I have to confess, I think this is so silly, but I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but I will get worked up about what like hair product to buy. I'm like, do I buy this brand that helps with the curls, or do I buy this brand that's lightweight, or do I buy this one? And you go through all the researching and you're reading all the testimonials and you're trying to find the best one for your hair. And you're like, what if I get it and it's crap, and you stress out? I mean, sometimes in the past, I've prayed. I'm like, God, could you just tell me in your all knowing power the exact shampoo my hair was designed to use? Like, seriously, I have prayed that. It's very silly. And honestly, I kind of wonder if God's up there being like, Lindsay, there's not a specific shampoo that's like quote unquote perfect for your hair. Like it's just shampoo, And like yeah, it's just silly, but we get it like caught up in those ways of thinking of there's a perfect thing out there, there's a right thing out there. And if I just had the right thing, then everything would be well. But she brings up this idea that when we do that, it actually causes more anxiety. So she brought up kind of the question of like, you've been overthinking about over worrying, over giving, like all these situations where we overdo it and we try to analyze every possible, like I always tend to analyze like every possible outcome that could ever happen to me about a lot of situations, which is a lot of brain power. It's very exhausting to overthink things. The irony of the title of this podcast is kind of saying, hey, I'm also an overthinker, but let's like talk about this, right? Like it can be so exhausting thinking about every possible outcome. And she was kind of challenging that idea and asking like, when has there been a time when you have thought about something and it actually made you feel more at peace? Like it truly made you feel better. And I think we tend to overthink the scenarios or what's going to happen because we really do think that it's going to make things better, that it's going to save us somehow. And the truth is that that's not the case. And your body is picking up on that energy, because she said if it was true that if overthinking actually worked, overanalyzing actually worked, if you spend an entire night overthinking and overanalyzing, you could solve your problems for the next 6 months, as that's what Dr. Giganji is saying. If it really worked, then you wouldn't have all the stress about all the stuff that happens for the next several months because of all the hours that we put into thinking. And I was like, well, shit, like that's so true, like if it really worked, then it should, in theory, eliminate the stress. But that's not what happens, is it? We stress about it. Maybe we come to some type of resolve on that journey, but then we stress again. And we'll continue to stress until that thing happens or does not happen and we get past it. And then we find something else to overstress about. So it's that concept of like, it actually doesn't help. And from a biological and neurological perspective, I always think of your body listens. It's listening and observing, engaging what you're doing. So when you have an emotion about something, your brain is literally taking note and it's picking up on all these signals. and being like, oh, okay, so she's stressed, so this must be bad. So we like heart rate needs to go up, and lack of sleep needs to happen, and blood pressure goes up, and alarms. Let's just ring the alarms. Like I kind of view it as like the brain's literally like it doesn't have all the like external context. It's just receiving what's coming in, almost like the movie Inside Out. If you've ever seen that animated film, I believe that Disney put on, Disney and Pixar maybe, but it's like it's following the little girl and like all the emotions in her mind, and when she goes through life experiences, like a memory drops and then it's sorted based as either a core memory or just like a general experience by all these emotions in her mind. And I kind of view the brain that way, is it's number one designed for, protection. It's wired to keep us safe. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but if you think of it as like a living being and it's taking in everything that's happening and it's trying to categorize it, and it starts to like almost like hitting symbols is kind of what I see. Like, or like ringing the bell. Like, oh my gosh, something bad is happening, just cause all this anxiety, and it's just trained to be like, okay, we gotta make sure Lindsay's okay. Like, well, it's just like this thing. It's too much, right? When really it's just like it's really taking cues from our emotions and how we're perceiving the situation. So instead, if you're like, you know what, overthinking this is not going to get me anywhere. I'm just going to have to learn how to practice letting this go and just living my life, right? The brain will eventually have to like, you're almost interrupting its neural pathway and saying, hey, 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 we're not going to go down that path because it doesn't get us truly anywhere. It doesn't actually answer our question. So we're not going to do it. And that's hard, easier said than done. But the brain will follow suit. The body will follow suit with how you handle and perceive situations, how the emotions that you choose when things happen. It perceives that and it starts to take note. It starts to rewrite. It's almost like looking at, like, pretend your brain wrote a book about your life so far. And it refers to, chapters and things of like, okay, when this happens, we go back to chapter 6. But what if you went in there and the brain took an eraser and went back to chapter 6 and just rewrote what the game plan is when that happens? So when it flips back, it's like, oh, wait, okay, so when she gets stressed, instead, we're going to do this, and it rewrites it. So you're like rewriting your manual essentially. That's kind of how I think about that. So I thought that was a really good question that she presented. Another thing I was reading about is in the Inside Out movie, they were talking about how they had like actual like neuropsychologists like there to help with the writing of the movie so that it did have like actual scientific like evidence in the way the brain works, the way emotions work, that type of thing, which is really cool. But this article I read, they were talking about the concept of mindfully embracing, and they say it as a mindful person is able to kindly observe their emotions without judging them as either right or wrong in any situation. So instead of being like, you shouldn't feel that way or you should feel that way, it's just like, okay, so you're feeling sad. Okay, like hold space for that. And that, I believe, taps into kind of inner child healing, which we'll dive into that. And in my group course that I do with healing anxious attachment and in my one-on-one coaching that I offer, we talk about that. Like, how do you, turn back and look at your inner self, like your kid self, and how do you nurture her? How do you be there for her? And if you have a younger sister or a daughter, this will be even easier, because if you imagine how you would talk to them, you're now retraining how to talk to yourself in that way too. And there's usually tends to be a lot more compassion, a lot more grace, a lot more understanding, and a lot more space that we give. And we need to give that to ourselves. So I think about this way too, is like, hey, if you're getting stressed, like I said at the beginning of this episode, don't beat yourself up. Just be like, okay, like this is usually how we've tended to get through things. And we're going to start practicing something new because we want a different life. We want our quality of life to get better. We want our quality, you know, our of relationships to get better as well. And that's why we're doing this, and that's why it matters. And the more we heal ourselves now, the better relationships will be, the better our future family stuff will be, because we're kind of changing the course of things. And it's a worthy journey, it's a powerful journey. So that's why we do it. So next, oh, and by the way, the article I found earlier was from the Greater Good Science Center, who wrote that article. So I want to give credit to them as well. Um, But the next thing is the other Instagram clip that was sent over to me from a friend was from Dr. Ellen Langer, who is labeled as I believe, the mother of mindfulness, and she's from out of Harvard. And I've never heard of her before, but she was awesome. And the very beginning of her clip, she says something so profound. She says, instead of stressing about making the right decision, make the decision right. And when I first heard that, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But as you listen to it and as I replayed that and thought about it, I was like, so she's saying, instead of figuring out which decision is right, just make a decision and decide that that was the right decision. Like, put meaning behind it and own it and just move on. And that's the concept here. And I got to say, with having my own coaching business, there's a lot of analysis paralysis that I experience, especially lately, to be honest. And I just worry so much about what's the perfect way or the right way to do something or the right way to say something or the right font or color or episode of a podcast. Like, I get so stressed about it that I just don't do it. And I'm learning how to show up imperfectly and how to show up authentically and just trust that what I bring is there for a reason, and I bring it to the table, and it's going to impact positively whoever happens to hear it. It's going to connect somehow, and I got to trust that. And the more that we put ourselves out there, the more comfortable we get, and the better that goes. But you don't start off as a professional. All of us start off as amateurs in whatever we might be endeavoring. It doesn't have to be business. It could be drawing or cooking or, a job that you're at or school. Like, all of us start at the beginning, and we just have to see ourselves as students, and we're just learning. And that's, how we should be approaching life, honestly. But going back to this, instead of making the right decision, made the decision right. So she's talking about how we were talking about earlier. A lot of times she's like, I could choose to get you know, I could choose a Sour Patch Kid, or I could choose a Snickers bar, or I could choose to go to this school, or I could choose to marry this person. Like, our life is full of choices. And she's saying, when we make a decision, let's say I eat a candy bar or I go to a school and the candy bar is gross, or my school situation just sucks and I don't like it. She said, we presume automatically that if we had taken the other option that we were deciding in between, that decision and option would have automatically been better than the one that than we did. But we don't know that. And she said, if we had this magical power to live through different decisions in our lives. So, like, okay, if I had the power to marry this person and then see the future and see what that would be like, and then I could say, go backwards, go back to that deciding time, choose someone else, see that life play out. She's like, yeah, maybe I could make a fair comparison and say, what would it be like if I was a mother of 3 kids or a mother of no kids? Or would it be like if I moved to Scotland for a mission trip, which I almost did? What would it have been like if I had stayed home? What would it be like if I dated this really toxic person and if I didn't? And if we had the luxury of truly, truly seeing those decisions play out, then the idea of regretting a decision or going back and forth like that would be valid. But she said regret, in her words and her opinion, is mindless because you don't actually know what that decision would have played out to be. The other one that you didn't do. We don't, and even the ones that we take, we don't know where it will go. We really don't. And it's this illusion of control and of power that we think that we have. I think most human beings do. Some of us overthink it more than others, but the fact is that we really don't know. And so she's suggesting the idea of, instead of stressing about which decision is right, just make one and own it, and see, you know, challenge yourself to think, what if no decision is actually perfect? But how can you create meaning behind the decision that you made? Like, I decided to wear this Lord of the Rings t-shirt. I love Lord of the Rings, so it's always, a win. But instead of being like, oh crap, I could have worn this other one because it looks better with my skin tone, or maybe it would have been a thinner shirt and it wouldn't have been as hot, or I don't know. I could just be like, I'm owning this shirt. I like the shirt. I picked the shirt. I wore the shirt. Like, and that's such a simple one. But, I think we just overthink. And I do think that's such a great, I guess, interruption in our way of thinking of like, you really don't know though. You think you do. You think you know if you make the decision it would have been better because this one was bad, automatically the opposite would have been better. But what if that one was also bad? Like you don't know. And you don't have the luxury or the power to go back. So what's the point is kind of the question here. What does that really do for us? What if you lived a life where you made decisions, you trusted your gut, and you're like, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna learn from it. And if there's some pain afterwards, then I'll learn and I'll pivot a different direction next time. I got engaged to a very toxic, kind of pathological liar type of person. Not kinda, he was. And I've had a lot of regrets around that, but I also go back and I'm like, I also understand like why I was doing that at the time. I understand where my like mental space was and what I thought I was doing and what I was like, we always have our reasons behind it. And the fact is that I got out of it and I'm here now and I learned. And also this has given me experience and platform to be able to encourage other people like you about, hey, this is what happened to me, and I want to encourage you. So if you are in that situation, or if you were ever close to getting into it, that maybe you wouldn't go down the same path as me and be able to experience healing faster. So instead of stressing about making the right decision, just make the decision right. Just decide that was the right call for me. At the time, it was the right call. And so just kind of in wrapping up today, trying to be in control of everything does not bring you more peace. It brings more exhaustion. And that's because control doesn't really exist when it comes to making those decisions and, knowing what's good and like the outcome of everything. That's just not possible. And when we do overthink things, just remembering that usually it's out of self-preservation and fear that we do that. And if we can get to a place where we can not obsess about things and let things go and trust the process, trust ourselves, trust that we're going to be okay in the end, you can let those things go and it'll be easier to not get so worked up about that. And, like, what would it feel like to trust yourself instead of chasing certainty? Just like, I'm good. Like, I'm just gonna trust this and I'm gonna remember that this causes more anxiety for me to worry about this. So I'm just gonna like go with it. Like, we only have one life to live. So wasting it away, stressing about every decision that we make, that's not a life. It's not a life of quality. It's not a life of lightness and peace. And that's what we're all wanting, right? We all are searching for that. And so these are practical things you can do today to just change how you're approaching maybe some of your anxiety of how you handle things, how you make decisions, and a journal prompt that you could try writing or typing on your phone or just like thinking about, and maybe digging into a more personal experience of this for your life right now is you could write out, what decision am I trying to get 100% right? And what if I chose and let it become right with time? Like, what am I trying to do 100% right now? And what would happen if I just made a decision and then just let time work itself out? So, work on that this week. Thanks for showing up today. I know it's been a little time since the last episode, but I'm glad we came back together for this one. And I hope you know that you can trust your gut. I hope you are able to experience more lightness in your days moving forward and just having kind of the confidence that you have the ability to make a decision that is right for you. And even the definition of right is for you to make. You can decide that was right for me because of this. So I could say that decision to date that guy years ago was right for me because now I have a platform and a space to help other women heal. That was right at the time, and you can just decide how you want it to be. So I encourage you to keep doing that. Just little reminders. If you go to my website, Life Coach Lens, I have blog posts on there, different resources. It talks about my coaching that I have, which I have one-on-one coaching available right now, which I said earlier, that can help you actually dive into this stuff in a more personal way. And we can actually talk through these things. I can give you more personalized tools and tips. But there's also a way to sign up for my newsletter. And I encourage you to do that because I'm just going to be sending encouragement to you to your email, your inbox. I'll be announcing my podcast episodes, my coaching opportunities, courses that are coming up. I also have a free from people pleasing to peace guide that I've made that you'll automatically get when you sign up for the newsletter. And it's really just a little like 3-page guide that helps you walk through how to make decisions that really honor your boundaries and how to say no to people in our lives. And I think when we're talking about decisions of right and wrong, I do think sometimes the fear motive behind us could be very well about what's going to make other people happy. And I think us being able to not make decisions out of that motive and to make them for ourselves is a big one for us anxious attached people. And so I would encourage you to go download, sign up for the newsletter. You'll automatically get that downloadable guide, like I said, and it'll walk you through how to make those decisions, being okay with saying no, having more peace in your life. There's a lot of journal prompts in there. There's all types of like little resources in there. So I encourage you to download it. It's free. You can sign up. I'm not going to spam you. I'm just going to be here to encourage you and be available. But you can also follow me on Life Coach Lynn's on Instagram as well. And just keep following the podcast, like the episodes, download them, share them with anyone you think this would be relevant to. Why not share what we're learning together and just all of us just have higher quality of our lives and trust our guts. I mean, it's a beautiful journey. It's a great, I guess, goal that we're getting towards. So we can share that with others. So feel free to share it if anyone comes to mind. But I really appreciate you spending time with me today, and we'll talk next time.